Okay, so let's talk about the next thing. Relaxing the cancellation policy. That seemed to have made a big change for us too.
So initially, we had a very strict cancellation policy. If a guest canceled greater than 30 days away from their stay, they could get 100% of their money back. We relaxed it to a moderate cancellation policy, which was 14 days. So when we did that, we jumped from page 5 up to page 2. Now, I think that it's very important to point out that, again, this worked for us. It isn't necessarily going to work for everybody. And you want to be very strategic about when you're actually doing this.
Welcome to STR Unlocked, a podcast for driven vacation rental investors looking to gain the freedom that comes with an abundance of time and money.
I'm April.
And I'm Nathan.
Our life is busy with 3 small children, full-time jobs, and not nearly enough coffee. And we're unlocking success with short-term rental investing every single day. Join us in our journey as we learn and grow together.
If we can do it, so can you.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of STR Unlocked. We are glad that you're here because if you're here, you're probably a short-term rental investor and you probably manage your property yourself and you're interested in learning more about how to manage that property at a higher level. So we're here to talk about everything that we've learned, and I'm here today with my beautiful wife, April. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Nathan. How are you?
Good. I'm being very careful to pronounce all my words as well as I can. So today we're going to be talking about really what has become our favorite tool, and that is Rankbreeze. It's one of the favorite tools that we have in our tech stack, and we really wanted to do an episode that focuses specifically on this tool because I honestly believe that this is probably one of the most powerful tools that we have in our arsenal to ensure that we're getting the revenue that we're wanting to get out of our investment. So first off, let's talk about Rankbreeze and why it's important.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't listened before, or for most people out there, I think most people use the OTAs, the online travel agencies. So that's when we talk about those, we're talking about Air BnB and Vrbo. For the most part, that's where we get most of our bookings from. We do have a direct booking website, but right now, most of our bookings come from Vrbo or Airbnb.
Right.
And so when you are listing on those platforms, it's really important how well you rank on those platforms, because if you want to get bookings, you have to be ranked high enough for people to be able to see you.
100%.
And so, especially in markets like Gatlinburg, where there's a ton of competition. I mean, I think that there's like 2,000 plus cabins at any given point in time out on Airbnb. And so for us to be able to make sure that we're ranking higher to be able to get those bookings is like critical, right? Like if we don't rank high enough, then it really does cripple our business. So Rankbreeze is a tool that allows you to see how well you're ranking on Airbnb, and it allows you to track the changes that you're making and how well those changes are impacting your ranking on Airbnb.
Yeah. And I think this is really important because if you don't have a method to track the changes that you're making and the effect that it's having on your listing, then it's really hard to figure out exactly what lever you should be pulling or you could pull at any given moment to ensure that you're getting more bookings. This kind of goes back to a very high level concept that we talk about a lot on this podcast, which is there's these 3 pillars. I'm not gonna go through all 3, but the first one is people can't book you if they don't know you exist. Right. And there's so many investors that we come across that will throw their property on Airbnb and then they wait around for like 2 weeks. And typically they'll get like a few bookings right off the bat because Airbnb will automatically push it to get it started. But after that initial push, they're sitting there going, I don't know why I'm not getting bookings. Well, you're not getting bookings because you're on page 5, right? You're not getting bookings because you're 8 or 10, or in some of these markets with a lot of properties, you're on page 25, but you don't know that, right? And so using the tool like Rankbreeze, now again, this only really functions, Rankbreeze only connects with Airbnb. It doesn't connect with Vrbo. So we're only really talking about Airbnb here, but using a tool like Rankbreeze, you get to track at any given moment where you currently are in the Airbnb rankings, and you can document, what changes you've made and the effect that that's had. This is so critically important. And this is such a big part of our business. And we believe in it so much that we've actually partnered with them. We actually have an affiliate code. If you're interested in checking this out, you can go to rankbreeze.com, RANK Breeze. I think it's just like it sounds.
Just like it sounds.
Just like it sounds.
RANKBREEZE.com/STR
Unlocked. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it actually kind of helps us produce more free content for you guys and help you guys through this. So you have to be seen in order to get booked. In order to figure out where you are to get seen and the changes you need to make to get seen, you use a tool like Rankbreeze. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to revolve this conversation today around kind of the three big things that personally we've done with our listing that's made the biggest impact. And again, we know this because we have the data. We actually tracked it. We documented. We put those little tags in Rankbreeze. And when we made a change, we were tracking it in Rankbreeze to see what happened. This does not mean, and we had this conversation last time, I think, this does not mean that this change will certainly work for you, because a lot of these changes are contextual, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But for the most part, this is what's worked for us. And so if you try these, you sign up with Rankbreeze, track it yourself, these will probably have a positive impact for you too. Okay, so let's talk about what was the first thing, what was the first change that we made that had a positive impact for us?
Yeah, so the first thing that we did was we had professional photos taken. And not only professional photos, but we actually paid very close attention to the order in which we placed those photos.
For sure. And I think the first thing's talked about a lot, regardless of the podcast you're on or the blog you're reading or whatever, everybody talks about having great photos. I think that's kind of an accepted thing now. If you aren't using professional photos, definitely get that. That should be top of mind for you for sure. Let's talk about the order though for a second. What do you mean by order of photos?
Yeah, so when you're listing out the photos in your Airbnb or Vrbo listing, you're not listing it like photos that you see on the MLS when you're searching for properties. Most of the time when you see photos that are on the MLS, they're in the order, right, that you're walking through the home. So you're starting with the outside and then you're walking through the home and everything's grouped nicely. For Airbnb and Vrbo, you're really paying attention to the photos that showed the most value to your customers and they capture their attention. And what I mean by that is when you are searching, and I encourage everybody, go to Airbnb right now if you haven't already, search for your area with or without dates and see what pops up. Look at those photos that pop up on the list of properties that are available and see what your competition is. If you don't know what your competition is, then you can't be better than your competition.
Sure. Right.
So your very first photo, it needs to be eye-catching. So if everybody else on that page, they have all outside photos of their house or their cabin or wherever you're listing, maybe show a photo of the inside. Maybe show a sunset photo. If everybody else has sunset photos, maybe you have a photo of, a fire pit, something that's different, something that's going to catch their attention and be different from everybody else. So that's the first thing is choose your first photo wisely and choose it based on the competition that's on that page. And it should also be highlighting your best feature. So if everybody else has, pictures of fire pits and you're like, well, I'm going to be different. I'm going to show them my bathroom. Unless your bathroom is an incredible bathroom, that's probably not a good idea to catch their attention.
Sure. Yeah.
After that, you want your first 5 or so photos to be the very best photos in your entire collection. So showcase the photo of all of your best amenities. So your hot tub. If you have a pool, show the pool. If you have amazing views, show one photo of the views. Don't have all your photos be the same. Right. So try to get a good spread across all the different amenities and the value that you provide through the photos. So your first 5 are really important.
Yeah. And I think in order to do this the most effective, because of course, just doing that will make it effective or more effective than what you're doing. But to really go the extra mile, you have to have an idea about who the person or the avatar is that you're marketing this property to. And when you purchase your property, you have to 100% have a target market in mind that this property is designed for. Those first few photos, those amenities need to be marketed towards the people that you're expecting to come to this property, to book this property and come and stay. I think oftentimes, and this goes for a lot of small businesses, this is kind of a common issue with any small business, but oftentimes they'll say, well, we're here for everybody. No, you're not. You're honestly not. And if you're trying to market to everybody, you're honestly not marketing to anybody super well. And in our experience, for instance, we'll take what we've done. When we bought our 5-bedroom cabin with views, we knew that, hey, this is a stay that is going to be for large groups, right? And is going to be probably for families. That's probably going to be the majority of who comes and who stays there. So our photos that we have in our listing is showcasing the amenities of our property geared towards those people that would be relevant for those people. I think another massive issue that comes into play here is your photos that you're showing, the first few photos, need to be in alignment with that concept. Okay. So for instance, let's say that it's a spacious, like let's say that you call it a spacious 5-bedroom cabin for large groups. Like that's kind of the market that you're marketing, or the people that you're marketing to, and that's in your title for the property. If your first photo is of the smallest room in the cabin, then that doesn't make sense, right? Like you have to make sure that when you're describing the space, the photos that you're showing first actually showcase what it is that you're talking about, or again, is relevant to the people that you're trying to market the property to. Ultra important. Like that's really where that alignment is where we see a lot of people really kind of mix up. So, this is a place here where talking about photos, let's just assume that you have professional photos. To really go back and think and think critically and analyze what's the order that I'm showcasing these photos in. It's not just about choosing the right hero image, right? Like that's great. That's important. That's a good start. But after that, trying to figure out those first 5 or 6 photos, 5, 6, 7 photos, that's all people are scrolling, right? If the first 5 or 6, 7 photos doesn't catch their attention or doesn't entice them to click on that listing and to check out the description, then you've lost them. And it's not just about that first photo, it's about the first 5 to 7. So with all that being said, we changed the order, we got some updated photos done. We saw that there was a change in the ranking, right?
We did. Yeah, it was pretty significant.
Yep.
So when we first connected to Rankbreeze, I think that we were on page 11, which honestly, like it hurt, right?
Yeah, for sure.
When we first connected it and we saw that, like we didn't know.
Well, and we found Rankbreeze and we started using Rankbreeze to solve a pain point for us, which was we weren't getting bookings.
Right.
And we were scared. Like we had made this investment into this property. We were anticipating a certain level of revenue and we weren't getting those bookings. We
even
were
during
terrified.
the summertime. Yeah.
Even
During the hot season, which I do think that we could have gotten bookings eventually once the supply dwindled down.
Sure.
But I mean,
and our prices had gone low enough.
And our prices had gone low enough. But in order to make smart decisions for your business, you have to have the data that shows these are the changes that we're making and these are the impacts to the bookings that we're getting and the amount of money that we're able to generate from the property.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about the next thing, relaxing the cancellation policy. That seemed to have made a big change for us too.
Yeah. So the very first change that we made with photos, it jumped us from page 11 up to I think it was page 5 initially. So that was our first change. Our second change was we relaxed temporarily our cancellation policy. So initially, we had a very strict cancellation policy where guests had to, the Airbnb policies change all the time, it seems like. But at that point in time, if a guest canceled within 30 days or greater than 30 days away from their stay, they could get 100% of their money back. We relaxed it to a moderate cancellation policy, which was 14 days. So up to 14 days before the arrival, they could cancel and get their full money back. So when we did that, we jumped from page 5 up to page 2. So that was another big change that we saw when we relaxed those cancellation policies. Now, I think that it's very important to point out that, again, this worked for us. It isn't necessarily going to work for everybody. And you want to be very strategic about when you're actually doing this. If you decide to use cancellation policies in order to bump your ranking, be very aware of what your market looks like as far as cancellations, whether or not you're going to be able to rebook those dates if those guests do cancel. So if you have a guest that cancels 14 days before, are you pretty confident that you're going to be able to rebook? You probably would be if you were during high season. So for us, during the summertime, if somebody booked 14 days out, I'd be pretty confident they could rebook. We had a situation right before Easter weekend. We had somebody cancel, I think, 2 days before their arrival, and we were able to get that rebooked the same day. So knowing your market and knowing whether or not you're going to be able to get those bookings, those dates rebooked, can give you the confidence to maybe relaxing those policies.
Which, to be frank, is one of the major reasons why we like investing where we do. I mean, because we know that we can make some of these strategic moves to ensure that we start getting more bookings, and we don't have to be scared that we're not going to get another one. I mean, I think that's a huge point to make there for sure.
Yes. Now, if you have a situation where you're during slow season and you're trying to get more bookings during slow season, you might still want to relax your cancellation policies if you feel like you'd be able to get those guests in and they're not going to be likely to cancel. So whenever you relax your cancellation policies, you're taking on more risk. So if a guest decides that they don't want to come for whatever reason, or they get sick and they don't have traveler's insurance, which we always recommend that our guests have traveler's insurance so that they can cancel for any reason. But if they do happen to cancel and you're stuck with an empty property, you're going to have to rebook. Or you would like to rebook. You don't have to, but you would like to rebook. So just be very aware of your risk tolerance as far as cancellations go. Are you going to be able to cover your bills if somebody, cancels 2 weeks before or 1 week before or the day of, depending on the cancellation policy that you use? And then also be very aware of whether or not that changes your ranking. If you make this change and it doesn't affect your ranking, go back.
100%. So this is one of those things I mentioned earlier, that some of these changes are contextual, right? It's important to understand it's not going to improve your ranking just to relax your cancellation policy. It's only going to improve your ranking if there's enough other people who still remain strict. If everybody's relaxing their cancellation policy, then that means that your rank probably isn't going to change all that much. You're only just doing what everybody else is already doing, which isn't going to improve where you're showing up in Airbnb. And so I think that that's really important. And April's right. It worked for us because when we made that change, there was enough other people that was remaining strict. And so Airbnb deemed that for us to provide a relaxed cancellation policy, our property was a better value for its guests who were searching for properties. But again, it's contextual. If everybody else in your market at the same time as you're relaxing your cancellation policy is relaxing theirs as well, you're not going to see a massive change. Again, this goes back to why Rankbreeze is so important. If you're able to use Rankbreeze, see what people are doing, see what people are not doing, and then you're able to make a change, and then you can document what happens as a result of that change you made, then because obviously we wouldn't relax our cancellation policy if we didn't need to. Right? Like if we relaxed it and we saw that, hey, it's not making a difference with our rankings, we would go back to strict immediately because it serves our interest, far better for it to be a strict policy.
Yeah. And we actually did go back. I don't know that you knew this, but we actually increased it back to strict probably 3 weeks ago because we're going into the winter season and we are looking at booking Thanksgiving and Christmas. And those dates, typically we have longer stays during that time and there's not a whole lot of supply right now. And so by increasing our cancellation policy, we don't lose ranking for those particular weeks. We can lock in gas without having to take on that extra risk. So for the next few weeks until we actually get those booked, we're actually on a strict cancellation policy, and then we'll probably drop it back down to moderate just to get us through the rest of winter and the very beginning of 2023.
100%. So that was really interesting. So the first thing was professional photos, and then ensuring that the order is right.
Absolutely.
The second thing was our relaxed cancellation policy. Those were the first two things that really made our jump in the Airbnb rankings to ensure that we were getting booked. What's the third? What's the last thing?
Yeah, so the very last thing that we did, which is really the first thing that most people try, is our pricing. We adjusted our pricing. So first and foremost, we do use a pricing software, Price Labs, to be able to price our property appropriately for the demand of any given day and the supply that's in the area. So we already have that going for us, but we took it a step further and we looked at our competition. We did some competitive analysis and we looked to see what the price was for our competition. And we were strategic about when we lowered that pricing.
And that's the key. When we lowered the pricing is the key.
Yeah. So a lot of people, from what I've seen when we talk with other hosts, is when they start not getting bookings, their very first instinct is to lower their price. Their price too high. They need to get people in there. They think that by lowering the price, they're going to be able to get more people in faster. So they'll lower the price, but that doesn't always necessarily bump your ranking. And we know that because of Rankbreeze. So what we did is we looked at when guests were booking, we looked for the specific dates that we were wanting to book, and then we looked at the prices that our competition were offering during those times, and we priced it just under. So by pricing our property just under for those specific time periods, we were able to, rank higher on Airbnb and get more people to look at our listing because we were providing a higher value at a better price point.
Yeah. And I think, again, we've had this conversation on this show a lot. because we are not of the camp, lower your prices, have low prices. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is ensuring that you're looking at the appropriate distance out from the time that you're looking to get booked. And for us, it's about 2 months.
Yeah, it's about
right.
8 or 10 weeks.
8 or 10 weeks. For us, that's what we're trying to do. And we talked about this in a previous episode, but it's probably worth going back to again. We have found in our situation, when at the beginning of the year, when things started getting tougher and tougher for Airbnbs and for hosts to get booked in a lot of these markets, we were experiencing that too. We were experiencing what a lot of people in the Facebook groups have been saying about how it's kind of coming down to these last minute bookings, and everybody's talking about how you're getting last minute bookings. I'll be honest, we have found that we believe the reason for that is because people are only in those last few weeks or last few days pricing it appropriately. Most people have their software hooked up, or even if you're not using dynamic pricing tool like Price Labs, you have Airbnb set up where the closer you get to that target date, the lower your prices go. There's a point where your price is now low enough where people deem it a valuable purchase, right? People deem that the value they're receiving for the price they're having to pay is appropriate. That's the issue. The issue isn't necessarily that nobody's booking Airbnbs until the last minute. There's plenty of people. We can prove it. Like when we figured this out, and I would say it was probably March, April?
It was about May timeframe.
Okay, May. So when we figured this out in May, we started going, okay, wait a minute, stop everything. It doesn't make sense to us that people who are booking vacations are booking it last minute. Obviously that happens.
Especially for the bigger properties.
Yeah, I mean, that happens for sure. But that doesn't make sense to us. So what's really going on here? And that's when we started testing the pricing, and not just adjusting pricing a week out or 2 weeks out. We were adjusting our pricing and ensure that we were just slightly below the competition 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out, right? So that we're able to capture that first round of guests who are making those bookings at that point. And that changed everything for us.
It did.
It changed everything. So, when we're talking about being strategic with your pricing, first off, we use Price Labs. Price Labs doesn't get it right though, right? It'll guide you in the right direction, but you can't depend on Price Labs to do the job for you. It's again, to go and be the maximum, to be the investor who's getting the maximum return, the maximum revenue from that property. You have to use Price Labs as a guide, but then take it a step further, like you said, analyze your competition, see where they're at 8 to 10 weeks out, and just make sure that you're slightly below that, capture that first round of guests. What's interesting, we've done podcasts on this before. I want to encourage you, go back to the earlier episodes when we're talking about strategic pricing, because we really go in depth on this topic. But what we found was we were constantly getting bookings compared to, and again, you can track this in Rankbreeze, right? Where you track your competition and then the price that your competition got booked at.
Yes, absolutely.
So like that's a whole nother thing that maybe we should talk about. Maybe we'll talk about it here at the end. We didn't plan to, but maybe we'll talk about it here at the end. But we were noticing that we were constantly getting a higher ADR for the same dates as our competition, simply because we booked it before they did. Right? They waited until the last second to bring down their nightly rate to get that place booked for the same dates. Even though 8 to 10 weeks, we were priced a little bit below them, we got that booking. And then because we got that booking, we're actually making more money than they are as an ADR because we captured that first round of guest who was booking 8 to 10 weeks out. If you wait to the last second, you're making less money.
Well, and the reason for that is because everybody is lowering their prices, right? Like, again, it comes back to contextual. Contextual.
You got it.
You guys know what I'm talking about. But it comes back to that. So if everybody, thank you, in context. So when everybody else is lowering their prices, if everybody's doing that, then the guest isn't seeing more value in your property than everybody else's.
That's right.
So if 8 to 10 weeks out, you're priced, your competition's priced here and you're coming in just under, you're standing out because your pricing is better.
100%.
But then if everybody else is lowering their price, you're lowering it with them, you're not standing out. You're not any different than anybody else.
100%. Yeah. I want to encourage you, go back and listen to those conversations around pricing and how we were kind of doing that. So, and I want to talk about how we can use Rankbreeze also to analyze that in a minute, but I just want to wrap this first part up. Here's the 3 things that we did. Again, these aren't the only 3 things. We're not suggesting that these are the only things that will help improve your ranking. We're only sharing with you what we did and the effect that we saw and what we learned in this process. Hopefully this part of the conversation will definitely serve you. Let's talk about the other thing that Rankbreeze will do too, which I think is very cool. None of the other tools that we have will do this, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. It doesn't mean that there aren't tools out there or that the tools haven't evolved since we've looked at them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rankbreeze will also give you down at the very bottom. So if you sign up, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it will show you a list of your competitors. So you can actually select competitors in your market. And it will show you for every single day on your calendar up to, I think it's 6 months out. It'll show you the price that they have listed on their listing and whether or not it got booked. And it will highlight in purple each of the days that it got booked and the price at which it booked for. So I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they scrape the website every so often to get those prices, but it will show you the price that they got booked. So you can go on any single date and you can see, okay, the cabin next to us, because we track the cabin next to us, they booked this date as well, but they booked it for $200 less.
And this is important because the cabin next to us is it's one of them that's in the neighborhood that's literally in the same neighborhood. It's a 5-bedroom, just like ours is.
Same amenities,
if not better. And we're getting a $200 improvement over theirs in the ADR, right?
And more bookings. So this allows you to keep better track of your competition. Now you still need to go into Airbnb and actually do searches and do your research there as well. But Rankbreeze will allow you to see exactly what they booked for and how many days they actually booked. So if you're analyzing, let's just say Christmas, for example, we haven't booked Christmas yet. That doesn't worry me because I know that supply is going to go down and demand will go up. It will book. But I can take a look and I can see exactly for those dates, what did everybody else book for? And how many properties are still available. I can still find that if I were to search Airbnb and just select the dates and see how many properties pop up, but I can't necessarily see exactly what date was booked for each of the other properties and the pricing at which they booked. So it just gives you a little bit more data to be able to make better decisions. So if you are using a pricing strategy, you can take a look at that when it gets closer to the date. So if we're booking 8 to 10 weeks out, when it gets closer to those dates, we can then look at the prices that we booked for compared to our competition and just see if that pricing strategy worked.
100%. We are never, I think we kind of both agree on this. This is not really a conversation we personally had, but I don't think that we would ever share with other people a tool that we're not, number one, using ourselves, and number two, that we really believe in. I mean, I would say, I'm just thinking to make sure that I actually believe this. I would say that there probably has not been another tool that we use in our business that's had a bigger effect on the success of our business other than Rankbreeze. Would you agree?
I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's massive, guys. And, we used all the other tools. We use OwnerRez as our management tool, Price Labs as our dynamic pricing tool. But honestly, like none of that matters if you're not getting seen, you're not getting booked, right? Like none of it matters if you're not getting the revenue that you're hoping for from your property. And Price Labs for us is just a huge part of making that happen.
Rankbreeze.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Rankbreeze. Price Labs. Yeah.
And I just want to close this up by saying, we started this in May, and in May, our 8 to 10 weeks out was around the August, September timeframe. For those of you who don't know the Gatlinburg market, that's really the slow season for Gatlinburg. Right. It's August and September. This is one of the slowest time periods for us. And talking with other hosts, looking on Rankbreeze to see how many places actually got booked during that time and the prices for which they got booked, we did really, really well. I want to say that we were at like 75 or 80% occupancy in August and September, which is just crazy. I think that the rest of the market landed around 50 or 60% when it was all said and done. And most of those were last minute bookings. Again, I know this because I saw the data for the actual properties, exactly when they got booked and the price that they got booked for. We did really well in August and September. And I know for a fact that it's because we were using Rankbreeze, we were doing that strategic pricing, and we were able to capture those guests the first time that they were booking instead of waiting for those last minute guests and just hoping that we got a booking.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great way to wrap this conversation. Guys, hopefully this has served you guys. I mean, our whole goal with this podcast to get together and have these conversations is to kind of, number one, for us, just kind of solidify some of the ideas that we're working on and the things that we're thinking about and the actual things that we're putting into practice in our business and just sharing with you what's working for us. we're never going to say it's going to work for you too, but we're just saying it's probably something that you want to think about and maybe something that you would like to look into. This is what we've done. This is how we've been successful, and hopefully it serves you too. Thanks so much for joining us. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us and listening to us ramble on about our nerddom for short-term rentals. And we hope to see you again next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Hopefully this was really helpful to you in your journey of building a business. If you like what you heard, please click subscribe and go to iTunes and give us a rating. That helps us out tremendously when we're producing, hopefully, content of huge value to you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I hope that you have an amazing week. Go out there and crush it. I'll see you soon.